was a slime. My cells could provide muscle just as easily as brain power. So somehow or other, I withstood the torrent of information. Then, synchronizing extra skill magic sense with unique skill Great Sage. Successful. All information will now be managed by Great Sage. Suddenly, my vision opened up. The brain-searing sensation from before was gone, and then I could see, so clearly that it was a wonder I wasn't able to do it before. Something told me that having the sage at my side was almost cheating. It wouldn't be going too far to put it that way. If someone else had it, I'd probably bitch that it was against the rules. Since I had it, though, no problem. Oh, I think I've got it. Thank you very much, I said, turning my attention to the creature in front of me. Holy crap. He really was a dragon. He was covered in scales that shone a dark shade of black, tougher looking than steel itself but supple and flexible. A big, evil-looking. Gar. You're a dragon. He looked positively demonic, towering far higher than I anticipated. My internal scream welled up, pouring out of me, and I don't think I could really be blamed for it. What a surprise. I feel bad for ever thinking this guy was pet-sized. This was, for real. Absolutely no doubt. The body, startlingly similar to a Western-style dragon's, shone like obsidian. There were 6 fingers on each hand, equipped with claws that looked ready to tear through whatever they found. The 2 pairs of wings on his back, one larger than the other, came to a point at their respective ends, like swords honed to perfection and ready to dice. Upon closer observation, the ominous scales covering his entire body actually radiated a dark purplish light, a mixture, perhaps, of their natural color and the unearthly force that made its way through the surface. There was something strangely beautiful about his vast shape, the picture of majestic dignity. I began regretting being so rude back when I couldn't take it all in, but that was all water under the bridge. Turned out, by the way, that I was indeed oval-shaped. Like a little bun. Kind of a light turquoise, maybe? Lighter than the daylight sky, but not by a lot. A rather elegant color, I thought. Shame about the whole being a slime thing. You do remember your promise, yes? And considering your previous complaints, you learned rather quickly, no? Oh, of course. I was just joking a little, is all. I can see just fine, and plus I can hear now, too. I really appreciate this. Humph. You could have taken your time. So he was fine after all. A little scary looking, but he was awfully kind to me, for no good reason. He really was lonely, I imagined. It was unfortunate that he looked the way he did. Kind of like that little story about the poor red demon who wanted to befriend the humans. So what do you intend to do next? Well, for starters, I figure I might as well look for some other worlders from my home country. Not that I care too much if I don't, but, you know. Finding some would be better, but it's not as if we're guaranteed to become fast friends. Plus, with my brand new eyesight, scoping out the world could do wonders for me. Harvesting the light and sound around me had just expanded my world 1,000-fold. Now, finally, I could say goodbye to my days of literally chewing the cud in my tiny cave or whatever. That dragon, though. The more I stared at him, the more sinister and terrifying he seemed. And yet he didn't move a single inch. He mentioned a 300-year-old seal, right? By the way, Veldora, you said something about being sealed away? Ah. Yes, I perhaps underestimated my opponent slightly. I eventually began fighting with, shall we say, more urgency, but, well, it was rather too late by then. The dragon sounded almost proud of his losing performance. Magic was one thing, but I doubted there was a sword or lance in this or any other world that could scratch him. It wasn't as if I knew that much of this world yet. Maybe it was crawling with horrifying monsters even more powerful than him, or something? Was your opponent that tough? She was, quite strong. She was what the humans call a hero, one blessed with so-called divine protection. A hero? My days in front of a game console had made me well familiar with that term. Simply doing hero stuff didn't make you dragon-slaying material, though. A lot of recent games had turned their so-called heroes into foils or parodies of themselves, besides. Maybe things were still a bit more traditional around here. Now that I recall, Veldora continued, the hero also said she was summoned. Perhaps she hails from the same area as you. Oh? I dunno. Where I come from, nobody's that strong, you know? Perhaps, but many other worlders come here bearing special powers. Powers that are chiseled into their souls in the midst of their journey. The summoned will always bear one such skill, a unique skill, one exclusive to them and them alone. Unlike the other worlders who come here by sheer accident, these people bear a soul strong enough to withstand the stress of the summoning process. The fact that said summoning process so rarely succeeds in this world otherwise proves as much. When you say summoning process, do you mean magic, or whatever? Precisely. A process requiring at least 30 magicians conducting a ceremony that takes place over 3 days. It is rarely successful, but it is seen as a powerful weapon to have in one's arsenal, should the need arise. A weapon? Those summoned in such a manner are bound by a magical curse upon their soul, unable to resist the orders of their masters. Whoa, really? No human rights or anything? Human rights? What rights would one possibly expect in this, of all worlds? Do not entertain such fantasies in this realm, little one. The only law that reigns here is survival of the fittest. Might, as they say, makes right. Well, if you got summoned to this world, no point hoping that your old values applied over here, I guessed. Bit hard to accept that. So are you saying that other worlders pretty much get treated like slaves here? No. It depends. There is no domination stamp applied to them. If society accepts them, they are free to live their lives as they please. They can become adventurers or the like. Many other worlder adventurers have sought my head. They learn the error of their ways soon enough. Ha. So you're only forced into servitude if you were summoned here, huh? Not servitude, exactly, but I suppose so, yes. I like to believe I know a great deal about the humans, but a great deal is not everything. No. You're a dragon, besides. In way, he knew almost too much as a dragon. At least conversing together put me on his good side, enough that he answered all my questions. So we kept talking, Veldora and I, dragon and slime, about all sorts of things. How had the fight gone with this hero? How strong was she? Her skin was pale in color, the dragon told me, her lips were bright red and small. Her long hair was a dark shade of silver, kept back in a single ponytail. She was slim, not that tall, rather small for a human. Her face was apparently covered by a mask, but there was no doubting her beauty. I asked him whether this beauty was enough to distract him, whether he was too enwrapped to defend himself properly. Enough of your nonsense. He bellowed back at me. Apparently she carried a long, curved sword. A katana, it was called. She didn't bother with a shield. Taking advantage of 2 unique skills, absolute severance and unlimited imprisonment, and a wealth of other magic, she, as Veldora put it, overwhelmed him. There was more than a trace of nostalgic contentment in his voice, or so it seemed to me. Something I picked up on as we spoke was that this dragon, I think he really liked humans. He kept calling them wimps and garbage and such, but from the way he put it, he never deliberately killed anyone who attacked him. Not unless they went out of their way to rile him. One time, 3 centuries ago, just one time, he emphasized, a certain chain of events made him reduce an entire city to embers. That was what made the people send a hero his way, and now, thanks to that hero's unlimited imprisonment, he was in his current predicament. I had trouble enough figuring out my own feelings about a lot of things. Other people's, I could only guess at. But I was starting to get the impression that, well, maybe this wasn't such a bad dragon at all. I mean, I liked him. And he wasn't anywhere near as scary as before. All right. Well, what do you think? Friends, then? It was kind of, no, really embarrassing to put it like that. I'd have been blushing right then, if I could. What? A mere slime, daring to seek the friendship of the mighty beast feared worldwide as Veldora the Storm Dragon? Oh, you don't have to if you don't want, but…
You fool. You foolish fool. Who said anything about not wishing it?
Oh, no? Okay, so, now what? Indeed.
If you insist, I suppose I could consider it. I could feel him sneaking furtive glances at me. It would have been one thing if it had been a cute girl sitting next to me at the movie theater, but it was quite another when it was a death-dealing mythical beast. Not fun.
Pretty funny, though.
Yep. I insist. It's settled. And if you don't like it, then watch out, 'cause I'll never come back. No. So be it. I will become your friend. I do hope you appreciate the gesture.
Ha.
I wondered whether I could manipulate the other 3 dragons he mentioned like this. I was made to exploit people, and he was made to be exploited. A perfect match.
Well, to future times, then.
Indeed.
To future times, yes, allow me to give you a name. In exchange, you will give one to us both. Huh? Why?
Where'd that come from? It shall chisel into our souls the fact that we are of the same rank.
Something similar to the family names the humans use, except my name, for you, will also provide a kind of divine blessing.
You are still nameless now, but through this, you will become a full-fledged named monster.
So he wanted me to come up with a common name for us to share? And in exchange, I'd get my own name and all the benefits of named monster status?
Better think up something good. I'm terrible at this stuff.
Well, you said you were a storm dragon, so… I dunno, Tempest or something? Kind of on the nose, I know, but it sounded cool to me, so… Perfect.
So be it.
A wonderful timbre to that title, yes.
He liked it?
From this day forward, they will call me Veldora Tempest.
And you?
You will be called Rimuru. Proclaim to the world that your name is Rimuru Tempest.
Thus the name was carved into my soul. Not that it did too much to me, or my abilities.
But somewhere, deep inside my soul, something did change a bit.
I suppose the same could be said of Veldora. And that's how we became friends.
Well, it was time to get going, I supposed.
But before that…
Hey, so I had something I wanted to ask before I left, but can't you do anything about that seal on you? Not with my powers, no. Someone with a unique skill on the same level as the heroes would be necessary for there to be even a chance. You don't have any, Veldora?
I do, but now that I am sealed off, I can access none of them. Telepathy is about all I can manage at the moment.
The hero's unlimited imprisonment could hold its target captive in an infinite number of imaginary spaces for all of time. It wasn't some weak barrier that would allow casual interference with the real world. Looking back, it should have struck me as strange that telepathy was possible, even. It wasn't the sort of thing that would break down over time, but given that he could have any contact with the real world, and even exchange messages, perhaps it said more about Veldora. Neither of us noticed this at the time, though. Well, here, let me try something. I rolled over to Veldora and tapped my body against him. Invoking unique skill predator to consume unique skill unlimited imprisonment.
Failed.
I figured as much, but no, I certainly wasn't hero caliber. With the dazzling light, my unique skill tried to do its work but weakly bounced off without any further comment. I thought it might have made a small rip, but that was all. The barrier would repair itself shortly, no doubt. I was hoping that unique skill on unique skill would result in something, but it didn't. Was there anything I could do, though?
Something. Received. Partial analysis of unique skill unlimited imprisonment complete. Reporting a potential escape route. Any escape involving a physical body is not possible.
The chance of destroying the prison by physically damaging it is 0. Cannot analyze an escape route involving the annulment of imaginary space. One would need to be caught within the same unlimited imprisonment situation in order to analyze it from the inside.
This is currently impossible. The chance of escaping in spiritual form is 1%.
If a spiritual receptacle is prepared for the target on the outside to aid in the transition, the success rate is 3%.
This process is equivalent to transmigration.
If the target is poorly compatible with the receptacle, he will lose all memories and abilities.
This concludes the report on potential escape routes. Kind of low numbers, it sounds like.
Unlimited imprisonment looked like nothing more than a transparent membrane from my perspective, but physical damage did nothing against it.
Maybe it had some kind of insurmountable defense attached to it, for all I knew.
Hey, did you lay any damage on this hero at all? Or vice versa?
I'm glad you asked.
Most of my attacks were evaded, but I did land several direct hits, which, I regret, had no effect on her. Death-calling wind, dark lightning, even storm of destruction had no effect, despite being completely unavoidable. A total loss.
All I could do was laugh.
Valdora then accentuated the point with a loud, hearty guffaw. It sounded as though you could also use this unlimited imprisonment skill to cover your own body, making a shield to protect from external attack.
Pretty handy thing to have around.
This hero was starting to sound downright omnipotent.
Between that and absolute severance, she was all but invincible, wasn't she? I really wouldn't want to run into her, but then, I wouldn't have to. I would have liked to assume she had died in the ensuing 300 years, at least.
Either way, she was one tough character. So if I was going to get him out of here, it would be through transferring his consciousness into a new body, huh?
I guess I need some kind of receptacle to get you out of here. Even if it's in spirit form only, it sounds like it ought to be possible. No point telling him what kind of odds he had to go on. I'd just be hurting Valdora further if I dampened his spirits. There is a way out of here? Indeed.
I feel my magical force will exhaust itself by no later than 100 years from now. My magic continues to flow out of me, even now. Yeah?
So that's why there's such a concentration of it around here. Indeed. Even high-class monsters would not dare approach. You saw how there were no weeds on the ground?
The sort of plants that can thrive in this area are very rare indeed. Right. I recalled all the hippocute herbs I'd churned through over my short life.
It was that valuable, huh?
Yeah, so, you wanna try escaping, maybe? If I had the right receptacle, I think that'd help our chances a fair amount. Do you know what I'd need, though? Indeed, even if I escaped in spiritual form only, it would be quite difficult to regather magic and form my core once more.
Your creating a small tear in the prison helped my chances immensely, no doubt.
As for that receptacle, the new core, if you will, if you can bring one to me, all I'd have to do is traverse myself over to it.
Transmigration, I suppose.
Yow.
And here I thought he was a little slow.
He knew exactly what I was getting at, didn't he? The exact same conclusion the sage had made, pretty much, yeah.
If it's something I can get on this side, I could look for it for you. To tell the truth, I do not need any core at all.
You can keep a secret, I trust? As I said, I am both unique and the most perfect of my kind.
A fully unique creation, one that takes purely spiritual form. I have no particular attachment to this body. It is merely the faith of those who live around me that forms the shape you see. There he went again. Spouting off complete nonsense.
As far as I could piece together in the ensuing conversation, the basic idea went like this.
Using his consciousness alone, he could gather magicules toward him to form a physical body.
Said body was currently being held in this prison, but that prison also prevented his will from collecting the magic he needed. Could he escape in consciousness form alone?
No, because he needed some kind of receptacle.
If he simply burst out in spirit form, his essence would scatter to the winds like the magic itself, erasing his very existence. This would result in the birth of a new storm dragon, somehow, somewhere. I didn't care about the details by this point.
But to sum up, maybe he could escape, But if he did, he'd wind up being something else. It wouldn't matter to him. So much for that. But what if I used Predator to consume Veldora himself?
I could either analyze him inside my stomach, or isolate him and annul the effect of unlimited imprisonment, and he'd be out.
Would that work?
Received. It is possible to store the target Veldora in your stomach via the unique skill Predator. Really?
In that case, if I could convince him of it, we could get going.
If I couldn't, he'd have another century of isolation before he was reduced to non-existence. So I spent a few moments explaining the Predator skill to Veldora, and what I wanted to do with it. It'd be impossible from the get-go without the sage's help, but... Mwahahahaha.
Fascinating. Please, go ahead. I leave myself at your mercy. You're that ready to believe me? But of course.
It'd be far more fun to break through this prison with you than sit around and await your return. With the two of us together, this unlimited imprisonment could fall quicker than we thought.
Now I got it. He was one, but now we were two. I liked his outlook.
So the plan was I'd use Great Sage and Predator to analyze this beast, and Veldora would try to destroy it from the inside.
No worries about Veldora dissipating away in my stomach. I was starting to think this could actually work. All right.
So I'm gonna consume you, all right? Hurry up and get out of there.
Ha. Right away. You shall make me wait no longer. Let us finally join together.
Right. I summoned up my stores of resolve, touching him for a moment, then activated my predation skill.
In a moment, Veldora's massive form disappeared from sight. It happened almost too fast. We were talking just a moment ago. Seeing him gone suddenly made me feel very small and very solitary.
Using the skill on my first target created too much resistance to work at all, but with the help of a fully cooperative Veldora in all his hugeness, it couldn't have gone more smoothly.
He and unlimited imprisonment itself were sucked in at once.
Kind of a surprise it all fit in me, though.
Checking my stomach usage.
Geez, 25%? How big was that thing, anyway?
Then.
Conduct analysis of unique skill unlimited imprisonment. Yes.
No. This better work, I prayed as I thought yes to myself. A cataclysm shook the world on that day. It was the only way to describe the reaction when the disappearance of the storm dragon Veldora was confirmed.
It wasn't every day that a special S-ranked monster simply vanished without a trace. Monsters, as well as adventurers, were ranked on a system of 6 grades, from A to F. Pluses and minuses could be attached to these grades for extra precision. This system was first put into place by a man named Yuki Kagurazuka, a rumored otherworlder and one of the few to assume the topmost rank of Grandmaster in the Free Guild. It was quickly adopted, thanks to being much easier to understand than the previous, somewhat arbitrary 4-tier system of Novice, Beginner, Intermediate, Advanced. The special S rank combined the S rank, which comprised Demon Lord class foes that deserved more than simply an A, with the special tag reserved for those above even that class, monsters capable of single-handedly engineering calamities or natural disasters, a scale-breaking rank, existing wholly outside the 6 traditional ones. Normally, an A-ranked monster alone would be dreadful enough to threaten the existence of a nation. Someone like Veldora was dangerous enough to plunge it into despair.
300 years of penance had done nothing to affect the dragon's rank as a natural disaster level threat.
Just because he had disappeared didn't mean he couldn't be reborn somewhere, posing a new menace before long. But 20 days after the initial report of his disappearance, the Western Holy Church issued a report that, as far as its investigations could tell, Veldora the Storm Dragon both no longer existed and showed no sign of existing anytime soon. Word spread first in the area around the Forest of Jura, a broad plain dotted with a large number of minor countries. Once Veldora's fate had been broadly reported, each one of them sprang to their feet, the proverbial hornet's nest stimulated to action.
Every king and every minister of every nation held day after day of emergency meetings, gathering information and debating what to do next.
It was a trying time for the Baron of Villard, minister of the small kingdom of Bloomond, but not half as trying as it was for the man Viard had called into his private chamber that day. This was Fuse, a man just as renowned for his sharp, unrelenting eyes as he was for his small stature. He was the guild master for this kingdom, a position affording him a hefty amount of authority even in such a tiny nation. "I believe you know why I summoned you here," the Baron began the moment Fuse walked through the archway.
"You have heard about the storm dragon by now, have you not?" Fuse nodded.
"Of course, my Baron," he said in his low, hoarse voice. "Humph," Viard spat out in response.
"I suppose I should expect nothing less of you, my good guild master."
"Now, may I ask about how the guild intends to respond?"
"We have no particular plans at this time, sir."
"I'm sorry, did I hear you correctly? You have no intention to take action?" "Yes, sir," Fuse replied with a voice devoid of emotion, silently asking the Baron what he was so perturbed about.
"I do not feel any action is necessary." The Baron, not a great fan of this response, chose to keep those feelings hidden. Rather a strange thing to say, is it not?
"Not necessary? The disappearance of Veldora the storm dragon may portend further monster activity in the space of days, even hours."
"And you are taking no measure at all against it?"
"It would strike me as rather strange to do so, sir, for taking such measures is the job of the state."
"I am responsible for the Free Guild, not for providing volunteer work when bidden." This was the truth, as far as Fuse was concerned. The Free Guild was an independent, non-governmental agency.
Its members were afforded no special guarantees of security or comfort, unlike the assorted workers and craftsmen on the government ledger, but the basic rights that all citizens were entitled to.
Their only official debt to the kingdom came in the form of taxes. That was the system in Bloomond, as it was in nearly all the nations that surrounded it.
To put it another way, the Free Guild was a group that operated outside the framework of any nation, and one far more unified than a single government as well. It was a fact that some of their operations occurred without the knowledge or consent of these nations, whether the Guild intended it to be seen that way or not. "Is it not the responsibility of the state," the Guild Master meekly continued, "to protect the assets of its people? In the same way, it is the Guild's responsibility to protect the lives of its members."
"We both have a lot on our plates, I suppose." Fuse wasn't sure whether he had imagined the blue vein that had just popped up on Viard's forehead or not. He hadn't. The Baron knew his position was being probed. "Enough pretense, Guild Master."
"How many mercenaries can you provide us? How many adventurers with combat experience? What is the size of the defense force you can provide in service?"
"I need numbers." The Guild Master gave a roll of his eyes and sighed.
"I do hope we are on the same page when I say this, sir, but I will remind you, we are not an army of volunteers. If we are talking about a mobilization based on the terms of our agreement, I can provide you the equivalent of 1/10 of our members. If you wish access to anything beyond that, well, that would all depend on our compensation."
The population of Bloomond was almost exactly 1 million.
The membership log of the local Free Guild totaled around 7,000, family members not included. Thus, if the kingdom decided to invoke its agreement with the guild and muster 10% of its members, 700 in all, these fighters would officially join the command of the national army. Such an order, of course, would apply only to guild members who belonged to Bloomond and no other nation. All Free Guild members fell under the same banner, but their home nations were also clearly stated in the logs for this reason. What's more, while a nation had the right to define its own mobilization period under this agreement, it was also obliged to give the guild a 1/5 discount on taxes collected during the entire period. This allowed governments to rapidly summon a powerful force, and the guild to make sure its men would not be obligated to the state for too much of their time. For a group like the guild, which was required to pay salaries to all deployed members in advance, it was the obvious approach to take. Besides, even if a government asked for every man the local Free Guild had, there would be no way to handle them. After all, only about half of any guild's membership had any fighting skill.
The Bloomond nobles were fully aware of this. Normally, they wouldn't have their top minister attempt to bully the guild master into better terms, but the times demanded otherwise. The monsters were stirring, for one, but even beyond that, they had more pressing motivations. Very well. Enough of this.
Are you trying to wring the truth out of me, Fuse?
Fuse's eyebrows raised a little at the mention of his name.
Viyard rarely, if ever, called him by it.
He turned his eyes toward the Baron for the first time.
The area near Veldora's prison was meant to be absolutely impenetrable, he said. Now that route may potentially be open to direct navigation, and that means we must consider the possibility of the Eastern Empire taking action.
Ah, certainly so. The Baron replied.
Whether they were letting Veldora be or were simply afraid of the seal being broken, we have been detecting sudden new movements in the Empire after a long period of silence.
Do you understand what that means? If they can navigate that forest, this kingdom will be swallowed up instantly.
And we can forget about the Western Holy Church providing us any meaningful support. The countries around the Forest of Jura have no meaningful alliance with each other. We will all become Empire vassals in the blink of an eye. No support from the Church?
I fear not, no.
They never were terribly interested in wars between mere mortals in the first place. Annihilating the monsters is what their doctrine calls for.
Quite so.
If we could have them deploy even one of their paladins, the Empire wouldn't be so quick to move.
Not needing to prepare for monster attacks would buy us some time, at least. I doubt anything could stir the Church to action, Fuse said. The destruction of a nation or two does nothing to affect their own finances. They cannot help everyone, nor even their own flock. He took a moment to gauge the Baron's face.
Viyard looked exhausted, as if he had aged rapidly in just the past few days.
It was understandable. The two of them were childhood friends.
And even though Viyard was merely a baron, if the public knew of Fuse's close contact with a member of the nobility, it would create assorted difficulties for the both of them. They both had to pretend to use each other for their own personal gain, which was why they usually portrayed their relationship as surly and resentful. It would take more than the power of a small kingdom to overcome this thorny obstacle they now faced.
But perhaps, Fuse thought, his friend was being overly anxious.
The Empire was on the move, it was true, but that didn't mean they should expect an attack before sunset.
But how do we know the Empire will take action against us? He offered. I will gladly conduct my own personal inquiries into the matter.
I'd advise you not to expect much, but I can at least gauge the situation in the Forest of Jura and around the Empire.
I would appreciate that.
Yes. There was no guarantee the Empire would act against them.
If it was going to, it would undoubtedly be with a large force.
It was never a nation to waste its time with small skirmishes.
No, it would casually send over a force of 1 million or so and trample over every nation in the area, one by one.
Assembling such an army would take time, at least 3 years or so.
Which was not a generous amount, but it created some wiggle room to work with. I had best begin gathering information, then, Fuse said to close the conversation. There is little time. I am off. Thank you. The two of them nodded and went their separate ways. There was much to do. 30 days had passed since I swallowed Veldora. What had I been up to? Well, think about it.
If you were being attacked by a monster, what would you do?
I mean, I was a slime now. It would be hard for me to zip away from a slavering attacker, much less defend myself, so I'd been spending my time thinking about how to fight back.
Along the way, I'd also been consuming any particularly odd-looking herbs or glowing rocks I stumbled across.
There was a fair amount.
I was still in the region Veldora described as teeming with local magic, and nearly everything I found there was hippocute herbs.
Which was about what I figured.
More healing potions for me, I suppose. I also found that most of the glowing stones and such around here were what was called magic ore, which could supposedly be refined into a metal harder than iron or steel and highly compatible with magic. I was kinda hoping for something a little less common, but I didn't even know whether orichalcum or crimson ore existed here, even if they were famous back on Earth.
I shouldn't be too greedy.
So as I was chowing down on all these yummy herbs and rock, an idea came to mind. If I could spit out water fast enough to give me powers of flight, maybe I could slice right through foes, too, Like a high-pressure water jet cutter?
No, no, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking I was about to screw it up again, aren't you? You really shouldn't look down on people like that. I was good in a pinch, you know.
They always wrote that in my report cards at school and stuff, excellent work when he applies himself. So yeah, I think it'd work.
Back I went to the underground lake from before. Just as I had imagined, the pool was pretty big. The air felt supremely tranquil to me. There were no creatures around, not even in the water, I assumed, what with all the magic soaked up inside it, which made it all the quieter.
Pure, unadulterated nature. Truly a sight to see.
But back to business.
I moved right into the action phase last time without testing a single thing, which was fairly ill-advised. That, and I ejected too much water at once, propelling myself far quicker than intended. No game plan whatsoever. This time, I'd keep it at water pistol level, expelling just a bit at a time. Just taking a mouthful of water and, THPBBT, spitting it out.
Here I go. Not much water coming out. Too small of an exit hole? I expanded it a bit.
Water shot out with a little more energy this time, dousing a nearby boulder I was targeting. A promising sign. After a few more minutes spent adjusting my water levels, I decided to boost the pressure just a tad more before opening wide.
Launch. Then again,
gradually upping the output as I kept my watergun practice going. It was starting to take form, yes. But, okay, while a shot of water might sting a bit, I didn't think it'd deliver a particularly decisive attack. So now what? I thought to myself as I took a dip into the lake to gather my thoughts.
Whenever I was tired, that was my cue to hit the bath for a bit.
I wasn't just splashing around for kicks, all right?
Besides, it also gave me a chance to use magic sense and observe myself floating and sinking in the water.
I reminded myself of a jellyfish, kind of. Maybe I could vibrate my body's surface to create currents or something? I gave it a shot, running magical force across my skin to control the particles around me.
The vibration ran across my entire body, so I tried to point it in a single direction, and that was all it took to get me moving. Nice.
I spent a little while whizzing around the water like that, enjoying the experience. A nice change of pace, to be sure, but I totally wasn't just messing around, all right?
Let's keep that straight. Skill current movement acquired.
I thought it was the sage for a moment, but it turned out to be the world language instead.
That bit of playing around just earned me a new skill.
Oh, but it wasn't playing around, okay?
I was just relaxing a bit.
Thanks to that, though, I could now flit around in or on the water at a pretty decent clip. If need be, I could use water pressure propulsion to speed things up, too. Considering I didn't need to breathe, fighting in the water might actually give me an advantage, for all I knew.
Good for fleeing into, at least.
That and other matters like it were on my mind as I left the lake.
Break time was over, and it had certainly borne fruit for me.
As I was relaxing, I had come up with a few new concepts. If I was going to keep pursuing the watergun approach, I'd have to apply constant pressure to my jet output for an extended period of time. Instead, I decided to picture the cylinder of a car engine, applying pressure to my inside while releasing a comparatively small amount of water per go. Adjusting the pressure and the diameter of my output hole allowed me to adjust the force of expulsion, just like before. And thankfully, just as I'd hoped, it worked.
A small jet, ejected sharply out of my body, slapped itself against the boulder, and it actually broke the rock slightly where it hit. Success, I think. Better keep practicing before I forget the knack.
Adjust output diameter, adjust pressure, and try putting a bit of spin on the water as you ejected, too.
There was a lot to think about as I kept rehearsing it. But that was it. That was the mental picture I had to keep in mind. Slicing through with water.
I had to make the jets as thin and flat as possible, applying just the right spin to them.
So I gave it a whirl. And it worked.
The cylindrical shot of water fought through the air resistance fast enough to leave after images, just like a blade, then slashed its way right through the rock.
with enough force to astound even me.
It was the pinnacle of my efforts, the best results of my week of practice.
Skill water blade acquired.
Skills water pressure propulsion, current movement, and water blade acquired.
Combining and upgrading to extra skill control water. Whoa. It really did work. Extra skills were supposed to offer a completely different level of force than regular ones. Now I had a way of defending myself. It was just about time to head off. Well.
Finally. 120 days had passed since I got reincarnated at the banks of this cavern lake. Was I nervous? Yes.
I still couldn't talk, exactly. I had no vocal cords, and I'd been poking around my body for something I could use as a substitute, but no dice yet.
Staying here until I had more success was one option, but unlike with the water blades, I really had nothing to go on. For now, it'd have to be telepathy or nothing, and if my would-be conversational partner couldn't use that, then so be it.
Not the greatest of situations, but there you go.
Either way, I couldn't goof around in here forever. I wanted to see the outside world, and if I could, I'd love to run into some fellow Japanese otherworlder castaways. Learning some magic could be fun, too.
It was time to get started. No time like the present, and all that. Veldora wasn't giving me any particular responses or signs inside me. It almost felt as though I'd lost him, but I knew that wasn't the case. We had a promise, besides.
Next time we meet, I better have some funny stories I can share with him. With an internal sigh, I traveled down the lone path upward from the broad underground cavern I had grown used to, my mind on the wide world to come.
Who knew what would be awaiting me? I hardly knew what to expect, but I knew I wanted it. The girl and the demon lord. The main thing I remember is the fire raining down.
The grip of my mother's hand against mine felt so light, fleeting, and I was too terrified to see the way ahead. An incendiary bomb went off nearby, turning our surroundings into a sea of flame.
Where were we supposed to go?
It was burning all around us. I, Shizu Aizawa, felt myself teetering on the brink of desperation.
Ah. Is this where I'm going to die? Even at the age of 8, I understood that well enough.
I had no relatives I could rely on, I lived alone with my mother. My father had been drafted into the war so long ago that I didn't even remember what he looked like. I was never quite sure whether I should be happy or sad about that, but either way, it had become my normal life, and I had to accept it for what it was.
Me, and my life, and my fate to die in the flames. And then? You want to live? If you want to live, heed my voice. A voice echoed in my head. Did I want to live? How should I know? I was too young to answer that question. Still, though.
Looking at my mother, now just a pair of hands after she had shielded me with her body, I couldn't stop the tears from coming.
And I thought to myself, I want to live.
Confirmed.
Responding to summoner's request. Successful. I can't take it anymore. It's too scary, it's too hot.
Help me, Mom.
I lay there and cried, no longer fearful of the flame, as I wished life for myself.
Confirmed. Extra skills control flame and cancel flame attack successfully acquired.
Then my wish came true.
Just, not exactly the way I'd hoped for.
When I next awoke, I was inside the lair of a monster, a lone man in front of me.
He had blue eyes, long blonde hair, a well-defined face, and long, slitted eyes.
His skin was so pale, I thought I could almost see through it.
His sheer beauty would make nearly anyone mistake him for a woman. His name was Leon Cromwell, one of the most powerful figures of this world, a so-called demon lord ascended from the human race.
Also known as the Platinum Devil. He sized me up.
Another failure, he whispered, seemingly disappointed at the sight of me, and he showed no further interest in me after that. Perhaps that was why he never bothered killing me, not even with the serious burns I had all over my body.
I was close to death, and I didn't even matter to him.
Just a frail little girl clinging to life and no doubt dying soon enough if left alone.
I couldn't stand that thought. I was still alive. I didn't want to be abandoned. And I never forgot that experience. That moment of frustrated desperation as he sized me up and tossed me away. That memory wound up following me for the rest of my life's journey.
At the time, I had nobody to turn to, none of the strength I needed to survive. The only chance I had to keep going was Leon, my demon lord.
He symbolized power to me, and being abandoned by him literally meant death.
I suppose I must have instinctually understood that, because without even thinking about it, I had extended a hand out toward Leon. Help. Help me.
But the longing arm I stretched out to the demon failed to reach him. I gave up on myself, and with that came the anger. I really am going to die here.
The sheer selfishness of rescuing me and then leaving me to die was something I just couldn't let go of. You liar, I said, summoning what little strength I had left.
You asked me if I wanted to live.
I couldn't stop the tears as I glared straight up at the demon. I was no longer capable of forming a coherent sentence, but if I had to summarize my thoughts, I suppose they'd be along the lines of this. You called for me, you gave up on me.
I can't believe you ignored me. That's cruel. In the end, it was another demonic whim that saved me. His eyes eerily lit up once more.
Ha! A liar, eh?
He whispered. One moment.
The ominous reply filled me with anxiety, but my near-fatal burns left me with nothing else to do.
All I could do was prostrate myself before the will of this monster, this Leon.
I had thought you were merely garbage, he said, but maybe you're suited for flame after all. Then he activated the summoning spell for Ifrit, the fire titan.
It was easy for him. No casting required at all. And when the giant appeared, he tossed him a casual order. I'm giving you a body. Use it well. It was all the evidence anyone needed to show that Leon treated me as less than human. My frustration began evolving into hatred. The trauma was etched into my mind at such a tender age. You want to live? If you want to live, show me your will. It must have been my imagination.
There was no way the demon lord could have ever said anything like that to me. No way he could have extended a hand out to me just before I succumbed to my burns. But it was true, thanks to having my body possessed, I lived because of him. The summoned Ifrit followed his orders, attempting to merge himself with my young frame.
I immediately felt my limbs grow numb. It felt as if Ifrit was trying to snatch my body away from me.
Just as Leon ordered, he was attempting to commandeer my body for his own use. Confirming.
Do you wish to be possessed by Ifrit in order to live?
Yes.
No.
As I cowered at the ghastly force flowing into me, I silently prayed to myself.
I don't want to die. Not yet. But, I can't. I can't let my old self disappear.
Confirmed.
Possession by Ifrit, successful.
Ifrit's possession is stabilizing Shizu Aizawa's magicules.
Successful.
Furthermore, unique skill deviant successfully acquired. Thus, thanks to a wild series of coincidences, I managed to survive.
Chapter 2. Battle of the Goblin Village.
The path from the underground lake to the surface took the form of a single long cavern path, which I was currently bouncing and oozing my way along.
I was moving quite a bit better than I'd originally pictured. Even in the dank darkness, harnessing magic sense made it look as bright as a sunny day to me.
Back when I was blind, I was too focused on my footing to notice, but slimes can actually truck along pretty quickly when they want to. I never got particularly fatigued, but there was no real reason to hurry either, so I tended to keep it at a regular walking rate by human standards. This was definitely not because my last flirtation with exuberant locomotion landed me square in the water. As I plodded on, I found that the path was blocked by a large gate, the first man-made object I had seen in this cave. Very suspicious, but it didn't throw me off much. It was just like any of the dozens I had seen before in RPGs.
Every boss room usually had a gate in front of it.
So how to get it open? Waterblade my way through the bars? It seemed like a decent idea, but as I thought it over, the door opened by itself with a creak. Flustered, I scurried over to one side of the path and watched.
Phew. Finally got this thing open. The whole lock-in mechanism must have rusted out, someone said. Yeah, I'll bet.
Nobody's even tried going in for 300 years or whatever, right?
Replied a second voice. There is no record of anyone attempting an entry. Are you sure we're safe? We are not leaving ourselves open to sudden attack? Commented a third. Ha 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 ha. Laughed the second one. Come on.
Maybe this guy was invincible a few centuries back, but it's just a big overgrown lizard, you know? I told you guys about how I bagged a basilisk solo once, didn't I?
It'll be fine. I was wondering about that, actually, the third replied. Are you sure that's the truth, Cabal?
A basilisk is a B+ ranked monster.
You truly handled that by yourself? Quit playing dumb.
I'm B ranked, you know. Some huge reptile ain't gonna faze me.
All right, all right.
Just keep your guard up, if you could.
And remember, we can always use my escape skill if things turn sour.
Can we save the friendly chit-chat for later?
The first interjected. I need some quiet.
It's just about time for me to activate concealing arts.
3 of them, it sounded like, none of them making much of an effort at stealth. And I understood everything they said, too.
Odd.
Received.
Your magic sense skill can be adapted to decipher sound waves that have willful meaning stored inside them.
Okay. So I couldn't speak to them, but I could get what they were saying. That was good. I was never too gifted at foreign languages.
I was always one of those kids in the back of the class, bitching all like, why do I need this? I'm never gonna live outside of Japan, anyway.
Save it for somebody who will.
Now that I was actually in that position, something told me that excuse wouldn't work for much longer.
Time to hit the books, I guess. But that wasn't important. What should I do?
That was a tougher question than opening the door, for sure.
I didn't know what they wanted, but if I had to guess, they were adventurers.
Treasure hunters, maybe. These were the first humans I'd encountered in this world. I had an urge to tail them to see what they were up to. But, if a slime who couldn't speak their language showed up, what would they do?
Slice me up with impunity, I'd bet. Better save it for next time. Safety first. I could save the human stuff for when I could talk to them.
The slim man leading the trio did something, and the 3 of them suddenly began fading from sight.
Not entirely, mind you.
He did mention a concealing something or other, some kind of skill, presumably.
I wonder what he learned that for.
Not for sneaking into people's bedrooms, hopefully.
How scandalous. I'll have to make friends with him later.
Once the trio went out of sight down the path, I sprang back into action.
No need to rush this. It wasn't as if this would be my last chance to meet people.
Slow and steady wins the race, as the ancients said, and I believe them.
Through the door I went, and before any of them could come back to check on things, I was gone.
Proceeding a fair distance from the door, I arrived at an intersection with several paths branching out from it. Which one would bring me to the surface?
Thinking about it wouldn't help much, so I chose a path and headed on down the cavern path. Flick. Flick. Our eyes met. Slowly, I averted mine.
There was a gigantic, ominous-looking serpent in front of me, a jet-black one with thorned scales, tough skin, and an appearance that made the snakes of Earth look positively cuddly.
This creature in my path made me feel like a deer, or a slime, in the headlights. My mind went blank.
Maybe I'd be okay if it didn't notice me?
Slowly, I tried to slide myself back. No luck.
The black snake reared its head upward, matching my movements.
It flicked its tongue at me as it silently menaced me with its eyes. Damn it. It's not letting me off the hook. We didn't need to exchange any words for that much to be clear. Should I fight it?
I had this killer finisher that I'd spent the last week training for, didn't I? It's just that, fighting a monster like this would take a bit of an extra oomph.
In other words, I was crapping my pants. But hang on. Get a hold of yourself. Thinking about it, I've been through scarier stuff before.
Remember Veldora?
Compared to that dragon, this guy.
Hell, maybe it's not so scary after all. Maybe this is all gonna work out. With a somewhat calmer mental state, I took a moment to size up the dark snake. It must have been thinking that it had stunned me into silence, that I was unable to move.
Probably coming up with ways to land the final strike on me. Maybe it found the concept of swallowing me whole to be too bland or something. Well, no point holding back.
Without another moment's hesitation, I squared up toward the snake's neck and unleashed a water blade. With a lethal-sounding whish, the blade pierced through the air and struck the monster.
It all happened in an instant, so quick, I doubted my eyes.
Without a single bit of resistance, the water blade lopped the black snake's head off.
A snake so huge, so ominous-looking, I was sure I'd be nothing but a mid-afternoon snack to it. This skill might have been a tad stronger than I thought.
If I'd used it on that adventuring trio, things might have gone all slasher film pretty fast.
Good thing I'd had the foresight to try it on a monster first.
Before I go on, let's do a quick recap of what was occupying my stomach at the moment.
Veldora, 15%. Water, 10%.
Medicinal herbs, recovery potions, and the like, 2%.
Ore and other materials, 3%. Grand total, about 30% in use.
Each water blade strike used not even a regular cup's worth of water, so, sheesh, I could probably spit out thousands of these before I even began worrying about running out.
Hell, a lot more efficient than some stupid magic spell. I think I'll be relying on this against monsters for a while to come. So about this snake. Would it have any abilities I could steal by absorbing and analyzing it? No time to waste. Let's give it a shot. The results were not bad.
In addition to the ability to disguise myself as a black snake, I gained the following 2 skills.
Sense heat source, intrinsic skill.
Identifies any heat reactions in the local area.
Not affected by any concealing effects. Poisonous breath, intrinsic skill.
A powerful breath-type poison, corrosion, attack. Affects an area 7 meters in front of the user in a 120-degree radius.
It looked as if this poison had a corrosive effect on its target, damaging whatever equipment or flesh it touched.
A normal adventurer would probably have a lot of trouble against this guy, wouldn't they? Though who could say, really, given the kind of magic available in this world. I spent a little while analyzing the skills of this snake I'd just vanquished.
The more cards in my hand, the better, I figured. The results. 1.
Mimicking the black snake increased my bodily volume.
2.
The skills I'd just earned could be invoked without having to mimic the snake's form, although their performance could suffer as a result.
To go into further detail. 1. I could break down and store the monsters I consumed with Predator in my stomach.
I'd used Predator on my own body in order to repair damage, and this provided some spare cells to help with that, in other words.
2.
Intrinsic skills appeared to be skills that were exclusive to a certain type of monster. My absorb, self-regeneration, and dissolve skills were intrinsic to me as a slime. However, to use intrinsics, I needed to take the form of the monster in question, or else I couldn't bust them out all the way. I could still use them in part, though, and some skills, like Sense Heat Source, seemed to work just fine either way.
Putting it all together, Predator freaking rocked.
I couldn't wait to track down some other useful skills with this thing. 3 days had passed after my snake battle.
I was still in the cave.
I couldn't feel heat or cold or anything, but for all I knew, it was pretty chilly in here. I had yet to see a single ray of sunshine, but my vision still worked just fine in the dark. However, a certain anxiety was starting to work its way into my head. I mean, I technically knew it wasn't possible, but I couldn't help but consider it. I'm not lost, am I?
No. I couldn't be. What kind of idiot gets himself lost in the very first cave?
That first easy-peasy cave's supposed to be a springboard that helps you dive into the experience, isn't it?
It looked as if that adventuring trio knew where the hell they were going, didn't it? I'd be fine.
It was probably just a really long path. Not knowing the exact way did make me a little nervous, though.
Was there any way to get some help with that? Received. Display the paths you've currently taken in your brain?
Yes.
No.
PFFT.
I laughed at myself. Are you kidding me?
I thought, unable to resist.